Now we're on. All right, good to go. You guys are good to go. So, Last Dance. It was something to actually watch on Sunday night, which was good. I wish it came on at 8 because I'm old. 9 o'clock, a little too much.
That's why
Um,
you DVR it.
yeah, yes, there you go. I'm just gonna give my 2 cents real quick. It was nice for Cameron because he was like, hey, like I never got to see Jordan play,
Good point.
and he was happy of like it went back, how it kind of went back in time and kind of set the stage, and then it also talked about like that '98 season. So he thought that part was cool because that was beneficial to him, not knowing the whole story. Um, as far as for me, the biggest takeaway I got is what was it? Traveling cocaine circus. I thought that was, yeah. I thought, wow. I thought that's saying something about that team before you got there. So, but I mean, there were no real surprises. I mean, I knew about the Pippen stuff, and we lived in Indiana at that time. So, I mean, living where we lived, our Fox Sports was all Chicago Fox Sports. So that was all I had to really watch. So, I mean, I knew about that stuff, but it was still really good. I mean, it was good. It was a good start. And I'm looking forward to the next 8 or whatever it is. But I don't really want to see next week because I figure the shot will be in there. But
Who?
the
Who will
shot,
be in?
yeah, the shot will be in there next week because you figure they showed him losing in that first round or whatever to Boston. So it'll be the shot, and then they'll lose to the Pistons a couple times. And yeah. All right. Who wants to go? Whoever,
Well,
man.
I think it's interesting, Keith, that you said you don't want to watch next week because my favorite part about all of it is the flashbacks. Because I'm like you, I remember all that stuff. Now there were a couple things in there that I did forget about, but it was still good to kind of catch up on that. Um, but the shot is tough. I'll give you that. But the bad boy stuff that's fun because that is deep seated hatred that I think still goes on today with a lot of those guys. I mean, I just want him and Isaiah. That was one of the great rivalries that really wasn't on the court as much as behind the scenes, and I'm looking forward to that. But as far as last week's show, listen, you're talking to a guy that still has about 25 Michael Jordan posters rolled up downstairs in the basement, and still has some hanging up in the classroom. If you were making a Mount Rushmore of sports, he is number one for me, and so anytime you get a chance to hear his voice and hear him talk and be real, it was fantastic. But the hard part for me is Reinsdorf. That whole thing. I just don't understand that in my line of thinking why you would want to publicly tear that apart and bring in a guy like Tim Floyd who's never done anything and just throw it all away when you have 2-3 Hall of Famers on your team and you just want to just tear it down for no real reason.
Ego, man.
What's that?
Ego.
Well, yeah, I get that, but that's the part that I don't understand. I know I have an ego, but I mean, I don't understand how, in a sense of a team that have that many people together, and you're just rolling along, how you would want to tear that apart before it had to be.
Danny?
Couple of things well, first off, to go off of Mason's point, I think it always makes me think of Jerry Krause had little man syndrome. I mean, literally, that's what it was. I mean, he had little man syndrome, and he wasn't getting enough credit.
You there, Danny, but he was just the GM, and I don't understand how Reinsdorf doesn't step in and say, "Hey, listen here, dude, this isn't right." That's the part that I didn't understand.
Well, I think if you look, though, I mean, he pretty much that was an interesting part of the documentary for me is how he literally hired Krause and let Krause do pretty much all of the operation stuff. I mean, he wasn't like a Jerry Jones type where he was. And one of the cool things I thought he said was, "Hey, listen, when you sign a contract, don't come back and talk to me again." I mean, the Pippen money thing was crazy to me. I mean, that he was the 120 by the time his contract ended, he was the 122nd highest paid player in the NBA. I thought that was nuts. Another thing I thought, I can't remember the GM's name who drafted Jordan. What's his name?
Rod Thorne.
Thank you. he said he was glad that the Olympics took place after the draft, or he doesn't think he would have ended up with Jordan. He thinks the Rockets would have taken him, which I thought was very interesting. Two other things I thought were crazy. First off, Jordan making fun of Krause was hysterical. Like his little dig shots. I mean, you could tell, like, you guys dig on me, but at least I think you like me most of the time. Like, you could tell he didn't like him at all. And thank God we have HD TV, because looking back at the grainy film from 1997 was crazy to me, like how much better our TV is now than 97. Speaking of that, Keith, absolutely, the Mount Rushmore of sports, not to totally get off thing, would be a really cool topic too, by the way.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Hey, if anyone is interested, I still have the VHS tape of Jordan scoring 63 against Boston. So if anybody's interested, I know you guys say you have VCRs. I think I could probably dig that up downstairs.
What you got, D5?
I got 4 key takeaways. First of all, it was awesome. So that was my freshman year of college, and I mean, I'm in the heyday of loving hoops the most. And I remember my college buddies and we were Cavs fans, but we were Jordan fans too. And I know that's weird, but that's the way it was. So this was really cool for me. There were a couple things I didn't really realize. I don't know if it's because I was too into college or what, but the first one was the whole Jerry Krause thing. I didn't know you guys talked about it already, but that dude was a jerk, man. Wow, it was amazing. I liked that one interview after practice whenever Jordan was talking. He looked up and he was looking at Krause's office. I thought that was kind of a funny thing, little dig at him. But you were right, Danny. He did have little man syndrome. But couple things from college that kind of hit me was when he talked about going from Mike to Michael on the shot. That was interesting, and the fact that like he knew that he was building a brand right then. And I mean, who knows if he knew that he would build it up to Jumpman, but that's when it started. It was pretty cool to see.
And Dean, not to interrupt you, what I thought was really cool too was when Worthy said,
"Yeah, I was just going to say that."
Okay, go ahead.
You want to look at my notes here?
Well, no, I just thought that.
No, but that shows because Worthy was giving him props too. He was like, I was better than the dude. And he goes, and then he just was a sponge and he sucked up stuff and he became the best player ever. And you're right, Dan. I mean, I thought that was a cool thing to see. You talked about it, Keith, but when they talked about the partying that went on when he got there, I think he said like he walked in and he's like, there's the lines over there, there's the weed smokers over there, there's the women over there. Like you think that stuff goes on, but just the fact that they talked about it that openly was kind of crazy. And then the thing that really hit me the most was like right at the beginning of the first episode was when Jordan was talking about how upset he was with the rebuild. I mean, they asked him after they won the championship in '97. Right after the game, he's sitting there with the trophy, and they ask him, and he's like, "We deserve to stay put until we prove that we, don't belong here anymore." And I don't know. I thought it was cool. I was really excited about it leading up to it, and I think that it's going to be cool to see what happens. Even the shot, as hurtful as that was against the Cavs, I saw a picture. I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter or anything, but it was a different angle that they're going to show from that cameraman.
Yeah, like some baseline camera. Yeah.
Elo was, oh my God, right in his face. I mean, even more than it showed in the other views. So,
yeah, the one thing that sticks out in my mind, just because I'm just that guy, is all this footage was still taken, and that this is a documentary that is from still Jordan's point of view. Like he's still the guy who says, yes, I want this. No, I don't want this. So when I think about Jerry Krause being the enemy, I'm sure he made jerky decisions, but I'm always aware that this is going to be skewed toward who I want to be, who I want to look bad, and who I want to look good, and those types of things. I did have to laugh because Dan Dockich was like, how come they didn't mention Jordan's junior season like when we beat them in the tournament. And I was like, well, of course, because you're an IU guy, because that's what you get. But I just thought about little things like that once he mentioned it. And I was like, you know, Jerry Krause, I'm sure there were a lot of egos there that you had to put up with. And what amazes me is that even today, I think about how hard it is for dynasties to exist because of egos. You know, like you think about even like Golden State, like you're Kevin Durant. Where do you leave in a pretty much a guaranteed spot where you guys know you're going to make it to the finals every year and probably win? But because of ego, it's like, nah, I can't be here any longer. I want my titles. Now I'm going to go off and go someplace else. It's just, it's amazing. I don't know. It just, it amazes me because my teams haven't had winners like that consistently. I just get amazed at how egos play such a big role, especially in professional sports. I don't know.
It's not just for professional sports, Keith, because, you know, I've been watching rockumentaries on all these bands, and you look at every great band, and it's all because of ego that they break up in the height of their prime. And you know, this guy wants to be the man, and this guy wants to be the man. And I mean, I think you could say that about just about everything.
Well, the one more thing with Krause that really jumped out at me, I didn't write it down, but I don't know if you guys saw the shot. They were talking about how he wanted some of the credit. He wasn't getting the credit, you know, with these championships. And did you guys happen to see when they showed Jordan walking on the bus the one time after a game, and Krause is in the front seat, and he just kind of like looked up at him? Like, that to me explained it all right there.
You know what, though? The guy does need some credit, though. I mean, he really does. I mean, he built. I mean, I know Jordan. You weren't having the 6 titles minus Jordan, but you also weren't having any of the titles until Pippen got there, and Jordan even said that himself.
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, it's true. Yeah, I mean, but you know, I agree, Dan. I think that's the hard part. I just think that's the tough part.
What'd you say, Mace?
One good draft pick doesn't make you a genius. I mean, all those guys came to Chicago not because Jerry Krause. They came there because Michael Jordan. And you know, he had one good draft, you know, with Pippen, and everybody else signed as free agents.
Well, Grant wasn't a free. Oh, was he a free agent? He was a draft too, wasn't he?
I think Grant was before Pippen, though.
Yeah, that was before Pippen, though. I mean, well, that was before that. I'm sorry, that would have been before. Now he probably did. No, they
came in together because they were because in the documentary, both those two guys were showing their jerseys together.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why I was wondering if that was the same draft. Like Grant and Pippen were the same draft.
That's a good question.
Because Pippen wasn't drafted by the Bulls. They traded him from the Sonics.
Right.
And Tony Kukoc, I wonder if Tony Kukoc is going to get any love during this documentary.
Well, he shouldn't.
Wow. Oh, let's go, man. It's Tony Kukoc, man.
The best Tony Kukoc story in the whole world is in the Olympics when Jordan and Pippen decided they weren't going to let him score. That's the best Tony Kukoc story ever. Where they just said, "Hey, if you're not guarding him, I am, and we're not letting him score." And the guy who led all of Europe in scoring didn't score. So,
that's funny. Yeah.
Horace Grant was drafted by the Chicago Bulls with the 10th overall pick in the '87 draft.
Okay.
That's it.
So he'd have made that pick.
Yep.
Yeah, I like I said, egos are tough, man. But you're right, Mace. In just about every walk, it's amazing how egos can just blow things up, because that dynasty had no business, really like shutting down to be like, okay, it's all over.
Right.
I mean, those guys could absolutely still play. So
but typically those dynasties shut down because players' egos, and that wasn't the case here.
Right.
I mean, this wasn't. I mean, it wasn't Pippen saying, "Hey, I got to leave," or any of these guys. It was an owner and a GM that said, "No, we're done." That's the part that I think was different.
You're right. Well, I look at the Patriots this year and I think, why is Tom Brady leaving? I mean, these guys have won more than anybody else has ever won. And you're thinking, that dude should be there until his arm falls off, but he's not. So it's amazing. I don't get it, but yeah, you would think winning would be a big enough deal that those guys want to stick around.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Anybody got anything else before we move on? All right.
No.
You guys are fantastic. All right. So let me do this. I'm going to stop. We'll come back. Beautiful. Beautiful.